It's time to lock in. We're talking SEC, college football, and more. This is AP as we see it.
I'm all about that action. I'm all about that action. I'm all about that action. I said I'm all about that action.
I'm AP Stedham from LA, Lower Alabama. This is AP as we see it, a weekly syndicated 1-hour show discussing the Southeastern Conference, college football on the national scene, and other sports. Welcome to another episode of AP as we see it, coming to you from New Orleans as we make our way back home to LA, Lower Alabama. We'd like to mention our social media platforms, our YouTube channel. You can see the visual broadcast of AP As We See It. That's on AP As We See It, the YouTube channel. We're on Spotify. The audio is archived. We're on 20 plus stations that you can check your local listings. We're heard in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi. And we'd like to also have you take a look at our Facebook, our Instagram, our X accounts. That's at AP As We See It, and also our personal one at AP Stedham. So check those out. You'll have the links for all the coverage of the college football playoff games that we've covered these last few weeks. And we were in Miami for the national championship football game, college football playoff, and we're going to discuss that college football playoff national championship game where the Indiana Hoosiers, yes, that's right, the IU, Indiana University Hoosiers, they won their first college football championship ever in the school's history, and they beat the University of Miami Hurricanes 27-21 in a very exciting ball game. But first, we want to just make mention of our sponsor, Greer's Markets, 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the Gulf Coast and beyond for 100 plus years. They have Lucy's Famous Recipes online. You can click those and find out some things to make for your family, and also the football, family, and friends. That's a winning tradition at Greer's. You can score big savings on fresh meats, produce, and more for your game day spreads. And then we're also entering the basketball season as well. The SEC is one of the best in the country, so they're going to continue that tradition this year, I believe, as well. Groceries online, so you can click on the groceries to go, and they have that delivered to your home, your office, the venue of your choice. And we also have the coloring contest for the children. That continues at Greer's. That's fun for people as well. And check the online weekly ads at Greer's Markets. And remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. So let's get on with our show. We want to discuss those Indiana University Hoosiers and salute to them. First time in history. And Curt Cignetti, he made that transformation dramatically. Year one, he made the playoffs. And I just want to bring up a point. He called it Chapter 2. This is the second year, and they were in the playoffs both years. They can put that down in history. The 12-team playoff, Indiana was their year one and year two. And I remember all the fuss last year about year one, and we're going to bring that into the discussion. But we wanted to salute that team. Curt Cignetti has that philosophy, production over potential. And we saw he brought those players, I think it was 13 last year from the James Madison team. And I think there were maybe seven remaining. But those players were highly skilled. They produced on the field, and some of them became All-Americans at this level, FBS level. And we had Fernando Mendoza, the outstanding transfer from the University of California, Cuban ancestry from South Florida, played at the University of California. And we had mentioned him through the years to many, many people. We saw him play for the University of California. We saw him beat Auburn on the Plains, and I was so impressed with his accuracy and his pocket presence, as I've said many, many times. But won the Heisman Trophy and some other awards, national awards, Player of the Year, All-American. And one thing about Fernando, when you watched him during the course of the season, he was clutch every time his team needed a drive. He was sensational against Penn State when he made that drive with the go-ahead points. And then in the playoffs as well. And let's go back to the Big Ten championship. Ohio State, they needed a drive to make a first down. He threw the pass down the sideline, big gain, kept the ball, beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. And And as I said, through the course of the season, we've had Indiana right in our top 10, and we just had Ohio State above them because they were the defending national champions. And I just thought, let's wait till the championship game. We're going to find out who's the best team. But I gave that preference to Ohio State. But I always thought Indiana was a top 10 team, and I was on them early because I liked that team last year and the coaching ability of Curt Cignetti and his staff, and the way that was a team, capital TEAM. That was a significant feature for Indiana that persuaded me to keep on them as a top 10 team this year. And I really was impressed with them last year. They have the word that comes to mind when you speak about Indiana is balance. When you watch their team, excellent offensive line, two good running backs, nearly, I think one had 1,000, one was near 1,000 for the season. That core of receivers was outstanding. And they produced and supported their quarterback, making sensational catches along the way. And I just like their tight end, Riley Nowakowski, and we can mention the receivers as well, Omar Cooper Jr., Charlie Becker, and of course the All-American Elijah Surratt. And then the running backs, Keelan Black and Roman Hemby, excellent ball players. Riley Nowakowski, as we said. And then on defense, Jamari Sharp from Miami, wanted to play for Miami, a very good defensive back. Cornerback Aiden Fisher, All-American linebacker. Isaiah Jones, linebacker. Mikhail Kamara. And they're even their kicker, Nico Radicic. And so they were excellent players through the season. And it produced a championship for Indiana University. And I just thought, and I've been saying this all along, I thought it was the best story in my lifetime because football is such a manpower sport. It's very different from basketball where you need 2 or 3 players you can make the turnaround. But Curt Cignetti, he arrived from James Madison, brought those 13 or so players, got into the playoffs. And let's go back to last season where people were knocking them about being in the playoffs. As soon as they lost that game to Notre Dame by 10, let's remember 10 points on a Friday evening. I think they even had the chance with an onside kick to make it closer at the end of the game. But let's remember the SEC was knocked out by double digits. Ohio State beat Texas 28-14. That's 14-point spread. Ohio State whipped Tennessee 42-17. That's 25-point spread. And then Notre Dame beat Georgia 23-10. That's a 13-point spread. So here it is. Indiana lost by 10 to Notre Dame in South Bend. And right away, and I'm not going to mention their names. Everyone knows. They started knocking Indiana. And I just thought it was outrageous because Indiana beat everybody on their schedule, including Michigan, a team that Ohio State lost to at home. It's 13-10, I believe it was. They could only score 10 points in that game in Columbus. And here everyone was knocking Indiana last year. Chapter 1, we'll call it. And I just thought Indiana did not deserve to be criticized for making the playoffs. They were a worthy team. They beat everybody on their schedule. They played a Big Ten schedule. And, oh, by the way, the SEC, I think the Big Ten is flexing their muscles because they've won the last 3 championship games. And also, let's consider the SEC was not in the championship game at all. They didn't even have a chance to win the final game. So the SEC, they're a league that prides themselves on being very good, and they have over time. But as Curt Cignetti said, was in his 60s, and he was called upon to lead this Indiana University team. He received the support of the administration, the president, the director of athletics as well. And he had a plan, and it's worked magnificently. And like I said, production over potential. And we're going to be discussing this. And with regards to the SEC, we always, our show is AP As We See It, and we emphasize the SEC. So we want to have some relevance and perspective for the SEC, as we've seen Indiana University win the National College Football Championship. So it's been very impressive. And the storyline, like I said, it's the best that I've ever seen in covering sports and in my lifetime, because of the idea that you're trying to get a team that was before the season at the bottom percentage wise of all time winning percentage. I think Northwestern passed them now because Indiana won all these games, so they're not at the bottom anymore. But that's for a very, very long time, through decade after decade, not winning very, very many games. So it was a sensational story, an excellent story. But we're going to our next segment, we're going to keep discussing this Indiana team, because I think it's worthy to expand and elaborate on how they reached this level, and with relationship to the SEC. Of course, we're going to tie that into our discussion. But anyway, we're going to be right back in a little bit to continue our discussion of Indiana University and their national championship. And so we're going to be right back after these messages with another segment of AP as we see it. Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greers.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. And we're back with another segment of AP as we see it, reporting live from New Orleans on our way back to LA, Lower Alabama. We want to make mention of our sponsor, Greer's Markets, 29 locations, Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, serving the Gulf Coast and beyond for over 100 years. They have Lucy's famous recipes. You can check those out online. And remember, family, friends, and football, that's a winning tradition at Greer's. You can score big savings on fresh meats, produce, and more for your game day spreads. We're going to have the basketball has been going on as well, SEC, and also professional football. They have the playoffs. So if you can't make it to one of the 29 locations, click on Groceries to Go. You can have it delivered to your home, your office, the venue of your choice. Remember to have the coloring contest for the children. That's always a lot of fun for them. And check out the online weekly ads as well. And remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. Well, let's get back to this Indiana team. Excuse me. If you look at some of the stats for the year, that Hoosier team, they led the Big Ten in 21 statistical categories and were second in 10 others. And nationally, they were near the tops, stopping the run, pass defense. Those are all things that give your team a chance to win, because you're stopping the team from scoring as well. And I was just so impressed with the balance of their team. And I don't even know if there's any 5-stars on that team, to be honest. But the SEC, as we know, that's a league that 5-stars, I mean, they're on every team in the SEC. And they always have the lead in the NFL draft with the most players selected, the 5-star players. But I think the key, and I think there was a study done years back that Nick Saban had the most 5-star players. And what happened to them as they progressed through the system, they were the most productive. You know, just because you have 5-star players doesn't mean they're always going to be productive. So, but what Curt Cignetti showed is production over potential. If you have an eye for evaluating talent, and we've said this many, many times, that because it's professionalized and everyone has millions, there's not one school in these Power 4 conferences that's lacking for funding. Oh, yes, they complain about it. And even Curt Cignetti said the reported numbers of their NIL deals were overstated, but they all have millions to sort out and acquire talent. But if you have somebody on your staff or as a staff, you're able to select and choose the proper talent for your team, you're going to be a big-time winner. And we saw that with Curt Cignetti, year one. Schools are spending millions to hire coaches to make the playoffs. Year one, he's in the playoffs. That's documented forever in time. Indiana was in the first two 12-game college football playoffs. That's quite a feat in and of itself. And we know, we discussed how they were knocked last year for losing by 10 points at South Bend. And of course, that was immediately on that Saturday morning before the other games were played. And we saw the SEC was bounced by more than 10 points, all the three teams, which we mentioned in the last segment. So, but this Indiana team, very impressive. One other thing I want to bring up is just on a personal note, we had Don Fisher, the voice of the Hoosiers, on our show recently. And Don Fisher, he was the voice of the Hoosiers for 53 years, and he broadcast the game, the 1976 Indiana basketball team that went 32-0. So he lived to broadcast the championship of the basketball team, undefeated basketball team in 1976, and the undefeated football team, 16-0. And nobody has been 16-0 since Yale of 1894. So this modern era of sports, the two that generate revenue, Indiana is the only school that has an undefeated football team and an undefeated basketball team. And what were the odds if you look back to 10 years ago to say that, well, Indiana has the undefeated basketball team, the last one in the modern era, 1976, and they will have the undefeated football team in the modern era. And not only that, they're going to have 16 wins because we have these playoffs and you're competing in all these football games. So it's a salute to Indiana, the Indiana University Hoosiers. And as Don Fisher, I heard him on the broadcast, he said, "What a team." And then it aptly describes this Indiana Hoosiers football team. They're tremendous. And they had some moments during the season, as all championship teams will experience. And like I said, Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner, and then he'll win other national awards as well as Player of the Year and All-American quarterback on the teams. But he was clutch in all those moments when his team needed him. Penn State, Ohio State. He scored that winning touchdown on the fourth down play on that run, which was epic. And he made that leap into the end zone, which I know people have those photos, and it was such a fitting tribute to him as an athlete. And during the press conference, he was making fun of his running style and saying how his teammates laugh at him and the coach. And so I thought that was great that he can have that sense of humility to understand that running's not his forte, but he can produce, and that's the name of the game, to produce. So, and let's make mention that on their way in this playoffs, they had to beat Ohio State in the league championship game. They had to beat Alabama. They had to beat out of the SEC. They had to beat Oregon, one of the better teams in their conference, and then they had to beat a Miami team in Miami. Let's remember that. They had to play essentially a road game. But when you looked at the stadium, just guessing, educated guess, maybe it was 60%, 65% Indiana. There was a lot of red jerseys there and in that stadium, even though it was a Miami home game. So it wasn't easy for them to beat all those teams. And those are some blue blood names along the way: Ohio State and Alabama. And just one other note, in the 1976 basketball season, on their way to the championship, they had to beat Alabama, the basketball team. That's the best Alabama team I've ever seen myself, but it was among the best, let's say that. And they had to beat them in Baton Rouge. It was a slim margin, by the way, but so they beat Alabama in the basketball that season for the championship, and they beat Alabama in football for their championship season. So that's just one common fact, including an SEC team. But anyway, when you're looking at these SEC teams, they get the 5-star players. There's no question. But I think that Curt Cignetti showed the rest of the college football, not only SEC, but if you can really effectively reach out to players who have produced and are projected to be able to play in the Big Ten, you've got a chance to compete for the college football championship and reach the playoffs. So that's something new and different. And as he said, it's a paradigm shift. And I just think Curt Cignetti, his story, the story of Indiana, is the best I've ever seen. Somebody late in life earned this huge contract to coach at a Power 4 team, a team that was on the bottom of the league, and he took him, as Mark Cuban said during the interview that I had with him after the game in Atlanta, the Peach Bowl, from the outhouse to the penthouse. And that's the best description I could use to describe this Indiana program as they ascended the mountaintop of college football to win a championship. But and they had the balance. And like I said, there's not a lot of high, and Curt Cignetti said this in the press conference, there's not a lot of high draft choices on the team, but it was a team with a capital T, as we stated, TEAM. And I think that's something to look at, the coaches in the SEC, and take note, because a lot of times they're getting players that are overpriced. They're projected to be all-stars, and they don't have, for whatever it may be, I don't know if it's the work ethic or something, but they don't end up reaching this that 5-star level on the college level. High school, yes. College level, no. And I think that sometimes if you look for a player that has done very well in high school, maybe doesn't have the exact measurables, but when you put on that tape, they're making a play. I've seen some players in the past built like Tarzan, play like Jane. They have all the attributes physically, but they don't have the instinct, the ability to make a play in a football game. They look good in the uniform, and they're on the all-bus team. When they get off the bus, you see them and you have fear. But then when you watch the tape, they haven't panned out, and they don't produce. So I just think it's something for the SEC coaches to take note. And you have to get the right quarterback. There's no question in this quarterback-centric era, as I said many, many times. And Fernando Mendoza, he was on his way to Yale before he ended up at the University of California, Berkeley. And then he entered the transfer portal, and his fortunes were changed once he moved to Bloomington, Indiana. And Curt Cignetti, who knows a lot about quarterbacks, and he mentioned that in his career, he was fortunate to be on staffs with good quarterback coaches. He mentioned Walt Harris when he was at the University of Pittsburgh. So and that's one thing I never could understand, why coaches never had a specific quarterback coach. Yeah, they have offensive coordinator, but somebody to coach that position is so important. Why did they did not hire a quarterback coach is beyond me. But if you don't have a quarterback that's very good and above, it's very difficult to win. And like I said, everyone has millions. I know they cry about it all the time. But if you have the right quarterback on your team, you have a chance, and you can play some defense where you can alter the possessions, where you have a couple more than the other team in this era. It's very difficult to stop these offenses. But we've seen good defense by Indiana and the other teams in the playoffs. They advanced, and the teams that didn't have a defense, they had trouble. But anyhow, but we're going to be back with another segment. We'll have some topics to discuss legally that involves the NCAA and football and moving forward. So we'll be right back after these messages with another segment of AP as we see it. Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greers.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. And we're back with another segment of AP as we see it. And we just want to make mention of our sponsor, Greer's Markets, over 100 years serving the Gulf Coast and beyond, 29 locations. Alabama, Florida, Mississippi. Lucy's Famous Recipes online. She has a book as well. Family, Friends, and Football is a winning tradition at Greer's. You can score big savings on fresh meats, produce, and more game day spreads. They have the Groceries to Go. You can have that those groceries delivered to your home, your office, your venue of choice. They have the coloring contest for the children. And check the online weekly ads for all the specials at Greer's Markets. And remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. Also, we want to make mention of our social media platforms at AP as we see it on our YouTube channel, Spotify, our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and X accounts at AP as we see it, and also at AP Stedham. And all the interviews we did, the bowl games and the events we'll be covering upcoming, you can check those out on our YouTube channel at AP as we see it. We did many, many interviews, and then after the post game as well, the on-field celebrations, and we had some interesting interviews. And I guess one of the best I liked was Mark Cuban when he said from the penthouse, from the outhouse to the penthouse. So you can watch that as well. But check our YouTube channel at AP As We See It for our broadcast, and the 20-plus stations around the Southeast that broadcast our show on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. That's their choice. So check your local listings for those times and dates. So anyway, we're just going to remember that there's a storybook ending for Indiana, and Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy quarterback, and he's the first-team All-American and many other awards, national awards, and their coach, Curt Cignetti, who's twice been voted the Coach of the Year. I don't think that's ever happened and with some of the organizations. So he was his plan was so effective, and everyone's wondering who's the next Indiana. It took a lifetime for me to see an Indiana, so I don't know if we'll see it again in the near future. But with this change of the NCAA rules with the transfer portal and the ability to pay players through the NIL and the revenue share and other means, it gives the people who are very smart with evaluating talent, and we can't emphasize that enough. Everyone has millions. Who gets your millions? Okay, this is professional football. You watch those teams year in and year out. Number one draft choices. They have millions of dollars. They can never reach the playoffs, and they can't come anywhere near to reaching the Super Bowl. So that's what's going to happen. You're going to have these teams, these blue-blooded teams that have big alumni population. And who knew that Indiana had the largest living alumni base? I would have guessed Ohio State, Michigan State, possibly. They were big schools for the last 50 years. University of Texas, Michigan, maybe Texas A&M University. But who knew that Indiana, they have awakened this fan base, the largest alumni in the United States, Indiana University. I did not know that fact until it came out with the ascension of their football program. And so I think, and it all begins with leadership. As I said, you have someone like Curt Cignetti. He understands how to build a football team, acquire talent, and has a good coaching staff, assistants that have been with him a long time. So he's probably going to face this fleeing of his coaching staff down the road. They'll probably consider for head coaching positions. But anyhow, we wanted to make mention of that was the fabulous story from our perspective, living a lifetime and never seeing anything close to it. So this chapter 1 was good with the college football playoffs, earning a berth in the 12-team playoff. And then chapter 2, winning at 16-0 as well. And mentioning the college football playoffs, there's a deadline coming up this week at the end of the week. They're trying to come up with the college football playoff format. Now we have the 10 conferences and Notre Dame. Now, the 8 conferences, they've acquiesced their power to the SEC and the Big Ten to come up with the decision. And I think it's stalled right now. There's not going to be any compromise. The SEC favors the 16-team format where you have the 5 conference championships, the highest rated, with the bids, and then the 11 at large, whereas the Big Ten, they favor 24 teams, which would be 4 from the Power 4. That would be 16 plus the 2 from the group of 6. And then you have the 6 at large, that's 24. They were trying to come up with a compromise for maybe 16 for a couple of years, move to the 24. But I don't think the SEC is going to back down from that position in this uncertainty that is hovering around the NCAA and college athletics. I don't think they're going to make a change. So we're probably going to revert to the 12-team college football playoff for the coming season. And oh, by the way, we had the handoff made in Miami. Next year, the playoffs, the college football championship will be in Las Vegas. So we look forward to that as well. But anyway, these 2 commissioners, these 2 leagues, the Big Ten and the SEC, Big Ten, they have to make this decision. But like I said, I think they're at a standstill, and I don't think that's going to occur. So we're going to have to just live with this 12-team college football play, which is fine. I'm satisfied. I was satisfied with 8, but 12, I can live with it. 16, I guess. I don't know if I'd like to see 24. I don't know. I don't think I would. Probably 16 max, where you have the no buys. That would be fine. So, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to remain with the 12. and because they can't come to an agreement right now with these the college football playoff format. One other thing we want to mention: they announced the college football Hall of Fame inductees for the coming year, and we had 3 players from the SEC: Mark Ingram, running back, Heisman Trophy winner from 08 to 2010. We had running back Garrison Hurst from Georgia. That was 90 to 92. And then we had the linebacker, George Cumbie from Oklahoma. That was 76 to 79. And that event takes place December the 8th in Las Vegas, the National Football Foundation College Football Hall of Fame banquet, the 68th annual, I believe that is. So if you ever had a notion to attend, I highly recommend buying tickets and making your way to Las Vegas for that event. You'll see many of the coaches and the former inductees come back, and it's a memorable night for the sport of college football. Black tie affair, usually around a couple thousand people, and it's well attended, of course, and it's a lot of fun. So I highly recommend you purchasing your tickets now for that event, the National Football Foundation College Football Hall of Fame annual banquet and awards. But anyhow, the SEC and the Big Ten has the Big Ten overwhelmed the SEC in these last 3 years. Is that going to be permanent? Is that going to be a shift because the Big Ten now can buy the players, and the SEC, they have their millions and they have their reputation and the better weather, but you see that the SEC has not been in the championship game for 3 years, and the Big Ten has won the last 3 years, and it's been 3 different teams. And now Indiana, and I think the Big Ten, you got Indiana, they're going to be on the stage for quite a while, I think, with Curt Cignetti and his administration. Their fan base is going to contribute money to buy these players, and he has an eye for talent. So that's going to be quite a very competitive league to make the playoffs. I'm not sure you're going to see some of these teams qualifying in the coming years, because I believe Ohio State will be there. I think Indiana, I think Michigan probably make a comeback under Kyle Whittingham. You have Penn State under Matt Campbell. And then you have the USC and UCLA, Iowa, these other teams trying to be part of the playoff system, maybe among the 4 or 5. It depends on how this shakes out with the college football playoff format, but it's going to be very difficult for those teams. So let's just look at the final Associated Press poll, if we can find that right now, and we'll read off all the names. Last couple minutes. Indiana number 1, of course. Miami 2, Ole Miss 3, Oregon 4, Ohio State 5, Georgia 6, Texas Tech 7, Texas A&M 8, Alabama 9, Notre Dame 10, BYU 11. Texas 12, Oklahoma 13, Utah 14, Vanderbilt 15, number 16 is Virginia, number 17 is Iowa, number 18 Tulane, James Madison at number 19, USC 20, Michigan 21, Houston 22, Navy 23, North Texas 24, TCU 25. Just to let everybody know, the SEC had the most with 7, followed by the Big Ten with 6, the ACC with 2, the Big 12 with 5, the American Athletic Conference with 3, the Sun Belt 1, and of course Notre Dame was the lone independent. But I never thought I'd ever say James Madison at 19 ahead of Blue Bloods, USC, and Michigan. So that's kind of unique this year to see the James Madison in that, and then of course Tulane's right above the James Madison. So, but the SEC still is an excellent league, of course. 7 teams in the final Associated Press poll. So. But as far as reaching the championship level, it is highly competitive. You get a great coaching staff, an eye for talent, and everyone has plenty of NIL money. I know they all are complaining and whining, but they find a way to field a football team. So the SEC, they'll be on the scene for quite a few the coming years. They're going to try to achieve another championship, which they've done in the past. You know, they pretty much dominated the last couple of decades, but the Big Ten is in town, and they're flexing their muscle with 3 consecutive championships with Ohio State, Michigan, and now the storybook ending for Indiana. We're going to be right back after these messages with another segment of AP as we see it. Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greer's.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. And we're back with another segment of AP as we see it. And we'd like to make mention of our sponsor, Greer's Markets, 100 plus years in business, serving the Gulf Coast and beyond. Football, family, and friends. That's a winning tradition at Greer's. You can score big savings on fresh meats, produce, and more for your game day spreads. Lucy's famous recipes and her book is online as well. You can, if you can't make it down to one of those locations, you can click on Groceries to Go, have everything delivered to your home, your office venue of choice. They have the coloring contest for the children, and also check out the weekly online ads. You can find all those specials that are listed for the holidays, the birthdays, the special occasions. And remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. Also, we want to highlight our social media platforms at AP as we see it on our YouTube channel. That has all the interviews and the celebrations and all the events that we cover through the year. And check out our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and X account at AP as we see it, and my personal one at AP Stedham, and also the Spotify at AP as we see it. So check out all those social media platforms and the links that we have to our interviews and all the events that we cover through the year, especially these bowl games. We made a round of it this year at the Orange Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, Peach Bowl, and of course the college football national championship game itself. So you can find those events and all those interviews and celebrations on our YouTube channel at AP as we see it. One notation about the college football playoff format, the SEC, their position really is, of course, the championship team from the SEC should be in the college football playoff. But they feel that over the long haul, they'll be competitive, and they just want those bids to be open, the at-large. They're not looking to have the qualify for 4 teams each and every year. They probably think they want more. I mean, that's the reason that you opt out and say, look, we're a league that is going to be competitive and talented, and we hold to the notion that we're going to have more than 4 teams. And of course, that comes down to money, looking for more money for their league. So, but I don't think there's going to be a compromise. I think we're going to have another year of 12 college football teams. They may surprise me, and that's fine. Either the 16 or the 24 favored by the Big Ten, which we elaborated on in the prior segment. But that could happen. Now, we want to just shift over to all these contracts, the NIL. We see the quarterback from Duke. He was originally at Tulane, left there, signed a big contract at Duke, had an excellent year, I think nearly 4,000 yards, if not 4,000 yards throwing the football. Darian Mensa, they won the league, but they didn't make the playoffs, but they won the league. And he wants to move on probably to, I mean, it's been stated and reported probably Miami. And so, but as I look at it, as the judge said one time at the trial, a signature on a contract is not an ornament. So these are enforceable contracts, but can you prevent somebody from moving to another school? Probably not. But the other school should receive some compensatory damages because now when the transfer portal has ended January 2nd through the 16th, you don't have a quarterback. And so now what are you supposed to do if you're Duke, the head coach at Duke, Manny Diaz? Your quarterback wants to leave and your backup quarterback has left because the quarterback that is intending to leave from Miami here in the last day or so, he's going to be gone, and now you don't have a quarterback. So how are you going to figure that out? What will the judge rule with this case? And it's affecting, not only that school, but the SEC. We're seeing, I think it was a defensive player trying to move to LSU. We saw the Washington quarterback, Lane Kiffin, was trying to travel up to the Northwest and see if he was interested. And then he was going to be sued by the University of Washington. So he had to reconsider. and he's staying at Washington. So it's going to affect the SEC. As we know, that recruiting is fierce, and it's not for the faint of heart. So these NIL contracts that are being challenged, and you're being able to leave and go to another school, they're going to have to make some decisions. The NCAA membership, which is the schools, they have the appetite to push this to the very limits of all these players moving around. Not only the NIL contracts, but the eligibility rules are being questioned. Players are competing 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So the NCAA used to have the ability to put the fear in schools. If you got a knock on the door from the NCAA, you were petrified. But now they welcome the NCAA because they've lost so many times in court. The NCAA, their big event, of course, is the college basketball, which that's the revenue generating event for them. And they want to hold on to that, of course. But the other position of the NCAA is they've lost so many times in court. They're very selective when they challenge somebody that's going against the rules of the NCAA. So, but it's going to have to be decided, and the trend is that players are winning in court. But with this NIL, when you sign a 2-year contract, I would have to say there's representation on both sides. I'm putting in a penalty clause if you leave after the first year, because not only are we losing a quarterback, but we were, subjecting our funds to be paid to you as the quarterback or any other player as well. But so I think there's going to be some penalty clauses involved in these NIL, or they should, with the representation from these schools and even the agent. And it works both ways. Maybe the school does not want you back for that second year. What if they decide, hey, we're going to decline paying you the second year? If I was the agent, I'd put in there has to be some a penalty if you release my player. So the damages flow both directions with each party. But this NIL business of players not being held accountable, I just find that preposterous. And anyway, the other thing is, it just came out, Charles Bediako, the center from Alabama, played a couple years ago, 7-foot center. He played in the G League now a couple of years. He wants to come back to Alabama, and a judge has allowed that to happen. In the University of Alabama, they released a statement in support of Charles Bediako coming back to play basketball immediately for the University of Alabama. So 5 years ago, there's no way that I would have pondered the idea of a player competing in the NBA or the G League, and now you're coming back to play basketball at the same university. I wonder if it's going to happen on the women's side as well, because they copy what the men do. So maybe we'll see it on the women's side as well. Who knows? Because those are some good deals that players are receiving to compete in college. It's better than the NBA rookie salary. And the G League, you're riding the bus. In college, you're having the private jet. So it's a better deal to stay in college, really, if you're basketball, but right to the end, as many years as you can compete. If you're one of the top players on your team and your coach and your university is willing to pay you this money. So they have to, I would say, reconsider jumping into the NBA if you're not guaranteed a first round spot or projected there. But anyway, we're going to just look at the basketball quickly, the SEC. But anyway, these court cases are going to be revisited, and there's going to be some decisions that are made that are probably set precedent along the way. And because I think you're going to see an avalanche of players trying to maybe get out of that NIL deal. And there's the tampering, which you can't enforce. The NCAA cannot enforce that at this time. They're going to be calling up players and say, hey, we'll give you another $500,000. And you've seen players that they move for maybe a couple $100,000 more. And that's not including the fact that they're going to be taxed at 50% of it or whatever. So that's not in consideration. For a couple $100,000, you can get somebody to move. But anyway, let's just look at the SEC, the basketball poll. As college football finishes now, but college football is always on the forefront with our show and around the country as well. But the SEC basketball in the AP top 25, you have Vanderbilt at 15, Florida at 16, Alabama 17, Arkansas 20, and Georgia at 21. So that's 5 teams that are in the top 5 in the AP poll on the men's side. On the women's side, you have 9 teams. You have South Carolina 2, Texas 4, Vanderbilt 5, LSU 6, Kentucky 11, Oklahoma 16, Tennessee 17, Ole Miss 18, and Alabama 23rd. So that's 9 teams in the Associated Press women's basketball poll. But anyway, it's been a fun show, but there's all these legalities that we don't know the final outcome, but we see the trend that the players now have the control. The pendulum for all those years was with the NCAA and the schools. They had the authority. They had their thumb on the players, but now the players and their representation, they are looking for ways to massage the situation and get the maximum for their clients, and that's their fiduciary responsibility. But like I say, the football, it's a year-to-year proposition. You're acquiring talent. You're changing the complexity, the complexion of your team. One year you're in the mid-range level in the conference. Next year you can reach the heights, as we saw Indiana these last 2 years, 27-2. They were at the bottom. So we'll just end it by saluting the Indiana University Hoosiers, Kurt Signetti, Fernando Mendoza, and company. Congratulations on their championship. It's a once-in-a-lifetime story, in my opinion, for me. And we'll be back next week with another episode of AP as we see it. Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greers.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it.